When times were tough and grocery stores didn't exist, American farm families had to make every scrap count. These resourceful cooks created recipes that could feed large families for days using ingredients most people throw away today. These forgotten recipes aren't just about survival. They tell stories of American ingenuity, community spirit, and turning ordinary scraps into extraordinary meals. Let's rediscover these lost treasures from our agricultural past. Recipe 1, corn cob jelly. What if I told you that after eating corn, you're throwing away the sweetest part? During the 1930s Depression, Iowa farm wives discovered that those stripped corn cobs contained enough natural sugar and pectin to create jelly that tasted like liquid sunshine. The process was pure genius. After the family had eaten their fill of sweet corn, those worthless cobs went into a massive pot with just enough water to cover them. Hours of slow boiling extracted golden syrup that, when combined with precious sugar, created enough jelly to last through the harshest winter. But here's what made this recipe truly revolutionary. A single bushel of corn could feed a family twice. First as fresh corn on the dinner table, then as dozens of jars of jelly that transformed stale biscuits into dessert. During the worst years of the Depression, when sugar cost more than some families made in a week, corn cob jelly meant the difference between bland survival and sweet comfort. Recipe 2, vinegar pie. This sounds impossible. How could vinegar become dessert? But during the brutal winter of 1936, when apple orchards across Michigan froze solid and fresh fruit became a distant memory, farm wives discovered that apple cider vinegar could fool anyone into thinking they were eating apple pie. The secret was in the chemistry. When sharp vinegar met sweet sugar and warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, something magical happened. The acid provided that bright tartness that makes your mouth water for apple pie, while eggs and butter created a custard so rich and smooth that even the preacher asked for seconds. What's truly shocking is how this fake pie often tasted better than the real thing. The vinegar provided a clean, bright flavor that never got cloying or overly sweet. During World War II rationing, when a single apple cost what a man made in an hour, vinegar pie kept American families connected to the desserts they loved. Recipe 3, leather britches beans. Before anyone invented freezers, Kentucky mountain families perfected a preservation technique so effective that green beans could last longer than the families who made them. Leather britches beans got their name because after drying, they looked like old leather pants hanging on the line. The process required perfect timing and mountain wisdom. Fresh green beans had to be strung on cotton thread at exactly the right stage, young enough to be tender, old enough to dry properly. Hung near the cabin's fireplace, they'd shrink and darken over weeks until they resembled leather strips that could survive any winter. But here's what shocked city folks who tried them. These old leather beans tasted more like beans than fresh beans ever could. The drying concentrated every bit of flavor into something that had an almost nutty, wine-like complexity. When soaked overnight and slow cooked with a ham bone, they created a dish so rich and satisfying that families preferred them to fresh beans. Recipe 4, Switchel Haymaker's Punch. Before Gatorade existed, Vermont farmers created the original energy drink that could sustain a man through 12 hours of cutting hay under the blazing sun. Switchel wasn't just refreshing. It was liquid survival that kept harvest crews working when lesser drinks would leave them collapsed in the fields. The recipe was brilliant in its simplicity. Apple cider vinegar quenched thirst better than water ever could, while fresh ginger settled stomachs churning from heat and hard work. Molasses provided quick energy that muscles could burn for hours, and the whole mixture stayed cool in stone jugs even during the hottest August days. What made Switchel truly remarkable was how it became the social glue of harvest time. Crews would pass the jug around during breaks, and sharing Switchel meant you were part of the team. During the 1890s hay boom, Switchel kept entire communities working through harvests that could make or break a family's survival. One jug of Switchel could keep a 4-man crew working all day, making it more valuable than gold during harvest season. Recipe 5. Milk toast. Before modern medicine, Pennsylvania Dutch families relied on milk toast as both comfort food and medicine that could nurse the sickest family member back to health. This wasn't just food, it was liquid love that could soothe upset stomachs, provide gentle nutrition, and show care when words weren't enough. The beauty was in its simplicity and availability. Every farm had fresh milk from their own cows and bread from their own wheat. When someone was feeling poorly, milk toast could be prepared in minutes without special ingredients or complicated techniques. Warm milk soothed raw throats, buttered toast provided gentle calories, and the combination created something greater than its parts. But milk toast served a darker purpose during the 1918 flu pandemic that killed more Americans than World War I. When entire families were bedridden and couldn't keep solid food down, milk toast became the difference between recovery and death. It was gentle enough for the sickest patients, but nutritious enough to sustain life. Recipe 6. Potato candy. When World War II sugar rationing hit American families in 1943, limiting each person to just 8 ounces per week, Ohio farm wives discovered that a single mashed potato could stretch precious sugar into candy that satisfied the sweetest tooth. The science was remarkable. Potato starch allowed candy makers to use half the sugar while achieving perfect consistency for rolling and shaping. After mixing 1 small potato with powdered sugar, the dough could be rolled flat, spread with rationed peanut butter, and rolled into logs that sliced into perfect pinwheel candies. What made this recipe truly special was how it outlasted the war that created it. Even when sugar became plentiful again, families continued making potato candy because it had become part of their Christmas traditions. Grandmothers taught granddaughters the technique, passing down not just a recipe, but a connection to the resourcefulness that had sustained their families. Recipe 7. Ham bone soup. In 1932, when a ham cost what most men made in a week, Missouri farm families discovered that the bone could feed them longer than the meat ever could. Ham bone soup wasn't just about stretching ingredients. It was about extracting every bit of value from something too precious to waste. The technique required patience that modern cooks have forgotten. That valuable ham bone would simmer for hours with dried beans and root vegetables, slowly releasing smoky flavors that penetrated every ingredient. The long cooking transformed tough beans into creamy perfection while creating a broth so rich it could sustain a working man through the coldest winter day. What made this soup truly remarkable was its multiplication effect. A single holiday ham could provide 2 completely different meals. First, as a special occasion roast that brought the family together. Then, as the foundation for a week's worth of soup that carried the memory of that celebration to ordinary weekday dinners. Recipe 8. Soda cracker pie. When unexpected company arrived and the pantry was nearly empty, Kansas farm wives could work miracles with nothing but saltine crackers, eggs, and sugar. Soda cracker pie was the ultimate magic trick, transforming everyday ingredients into something that could fool the preacher into thinking he was eating expensive nut pie. The transformation defied logic. Crushed saltines, when combined with beaten egg whites and sugar, created a filling that baked into something with the texture and flavor of sophisticated pecan pie. The crackers provided structure and a mysterious nutty flavor that guests couldn't identify, but found completely satisfying. What made this pie legendary was its reliance on ingredients that never spoiled. Crackers lasted for months in the pantry, chickens provided eggs year-round, and sugar was a basic staple. Recipe 9. Dandelion wine. Before dandelions became lawn enemies, Wisconsin farm families recognized them as spring's golden treasure that could be transformed into wine more delicate and floral than anything money could buy in town. Making dandelion wine was a family ritual that celebrated winter's end. Children would gather thousands of bright yellow blossoms on the first warm day, picking only flowers that were fully open but hadn't started to fade. The flowers were then steeped with oranges and lemons, creating a base that would ferment into liquid sunshine. The resulting wine captured something that commercial wines never could: the essence of a specific place and time. What made this wine truly special was its democracy. While grape wines required expensive fruit and specialized knowledge, dandelion wine could be made by any farm family with basic fermentation skills. The dandelions cost nothing and grew everywhere, making this a luxury that even the poorest families could enjoy. Recipe 10. Vinegar pie. This sounds impossible. How could vinegar become dessert? But during the brutal winter of 1936, when apple orchards across Michigan froze solid and fresh fruit became a distant memory, farm wives discovered that apple cider vinegar could fool anyone into thinking they were eating apple pie. The secret was in the chemistry. When sharp vinegar met sweet sugar and warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, something magical happened. The acid provided that bright tartness that makes your mouth water for apple pie, while eggs and butter created a custard so rich and smooth that even the preacher asked for seconds. What's truly shocking is how this fake pie often tasted better than the real thing. The vinegar provided a clean, bright flavor that never got cloying or overly sweet. During World War II rationing, when a single apple cost what a man made in an hour, vinegar pie kept American families connected to the desserts they loved. The ingredients, vinegar, eggs, sugar, and spices, were shelf-stable treasures that could create comfort when everything else was scarce. Recipe 11. Chow relish. When August gardens in North Carolina exploded with more vegetables than any family could eat fresh, farm wives created Chow, a rainbow relish that could transform winter's blandest meals into something that tasted like summer's abundance. The genius was in its flexibility. Whatever was overwhelming the garden could go into Chow. Cabbage formed the base, but green tomatoes, bell peppers, onions, and beans all found their way into the colorful mix. Chopped fine and cooked in a sweet-sour brine with mustard seed and turmeric, it created a condiment that could brighten any meal. What made Chow culturally significant was how it reflected America's melting pot heritage. The technique combined Southern preservation methods with Pennsylvania Dutch traditions and Asian pickling wisdom brought by immigrants. Each region developed its own signature style, but all understood the same principle: abundance should be preserved for scarcity. During the lean months of late winter, when root cellars were running low and fresh vegetables were just a memory, a jar of Chow could transform simple beans and cornbread into a meal that reminded families of better times ahead. Recipe 12. Scripture, cake, Bible cake. In the 1890s, rural communities where Sunday school and kitchen work happened in the same farmhouse, scripture cake served a brilliant dual purpose: creating delicious spice cake while forcing children to study their Bible verses to figure out the ingredients. The educational genius was in the mystery. Judges 5:25 meant butter, while Jeremiah 6:20 referred to sweet cane sugar. 1 Kings 4:22 specified flour, and other verses provided clues for eggs, spices, and fruits. Children had to earn their cake by learning their scriptures, making baking time into Bible study time. What made this cake special wasn't just its educational value. It was genuinely delicious. The completed cake was rich with fruits and spices, similar to fruitcake, but with significance that went far beyond dessert. It represented how farm families wove faith into every aspect of daily life, using ordinary tasks to reinforce extraordinary values. Recipe 13. Buttermilk Pie. In Tennessee dairy country, where buttermaking produced gallons of tangy buttermilk weekly, farm wives refused to waste this liquid gold by feeding it to the pigs. Instead, they created buttermilk pie, a custard so smooth and perfectly balanced that it became the signature dessert of the rural South. The filling was deceptively simple. Buttermilk, eggs, sugar, and a touch of flour created a custard with subtle tanginess that balanced sweetness perfectly. When baked, it formed a delicate caramelized top that gave way to creamy smoothness underneath. The result was sophisticated enough for the finest Sunday dinner, but economical enough for everyday enjoyment. What made buttermilk pie culturally important was how it crossed social boundaries. From humble tenant farms to grand plantation houses, this pie appeared on tables throughout the South. It represented the democratic nature of Southern cooking. The best dishes often came from the most practical needs. During the 1920s, cotton boom buttermilk pie became the signature dessert at church socials and community gatherings. Recipe 14. Molasses stacked cake. In the 1880s, Appalachian communities where sugar cost more than most families made in a month, molasses was the sweetener that made life bearable. For weddings and special celebrations, mountain families created molasses stack cake, a towering masterpiece that represented community cooperation at its finest. The tradition was beautiful in its simplicity. Each family attending a wedding would bring a single thin layer of molasses spice cake. At the celebration, these layers would be assembled with spiced apple butter between each one, creating a cake that could tower a foot high or more. The more layers, the more beloved the bride or important the occasion. What made this cake truly special was how it improved with time. The apple butter slowly softened the firm cookie layers over several days, creating a dessert that was better a week after the wedding than on the wedding day itself. This aging process meant the cake could be prepared around farm work schedules. Recipe 15. Pickled eggs. When spring arrived in 1925 and Ohio farm chickens responded to longer daylight by laying more eggs than any family could eat fresh, farm wives turned to pickling, a preservation method that could stretch spring's abundance through the lean months ahead. The process was foolproof but required attention to detail. Dozens of hard-boiled eggs were peeled and packed into crocks with vinegar brine, seasoned with mustard seed, dill, and sometimes beet juice for color. Stored in cool cellars, these eggs would remain perfectly edible for months, providing protein when fresh eggs were scarce. What made pickled eggs culturally significant was their role in social traditions. They appeared at barn raisings, harvest celebrations, and church socials, where their portable, ready-to-eat nature made them perfect for feeding crowds. During the Great Depression, when protein was expensive and eggs were one of the few reliable sources, pickled eggs meant the difference between adequate nutrition and a hunger. Recipe 16. Sour milk pancakes. Before refrigeration, milk soured quickly during Indiana's humid summers. Rather than waste this precious resource, farm wives discovered that sour milk created pancakes so light and flavorful they were better than anything made with fresh milk. The chemistry was brilliant. Sour milk's natural acidity reacted with baking soda to create lift and lightness that fresh milk couldn't match. The slight tanginess added complexity to the flavor, while the fermentation process had already begun breaking down proteins, making the pancakes easier to digest. What made these pancakes legendary was their ability to transform potential waste into family treasure. Milk that was too sour to drink became the foundation for breakfast that could sustain farm workers through morning chores. Served with molasses or maple syrup, they provided the calories and satisfaction needed for physical work. During the 1930s, when wasting food meant the difference between survival and starvation, sour milk pancakes represented the practical wisdom that guided farm kitchens. Recipe 17. Hasty pudding. When Massachusetts farm families needed quick, filling meals after 14-hour days of physical labor, hasty pudding provided the answer. A simple cornmeal porridge that could be on the table in minutes while providing the hearty sustenance that working families required. The name Hasty distinguished it from bread, which required hours of rising and baking. Hasty pudding could feed a hungry family in the time it took to boil water and stir cornmeal. Served sweet with molasses or savory with butter and salt, it adapted to whatever the family needed or could afford. What made hasty pudding historically significant was its connection to America's founding. This simple dish sustained colonial farmers through the Revolution and westward expansion. George Washington reportedly ate it regularly, and Abraham Lincoln grew up on it, connecting humble farm tables to the highest levels of American leadership. Recipe 18. Apple butter. When Pennsylvania Dutch families faced apple harvests so abundant that fresh fruit would rot before it could be eaten, they created apple butter, a concentrated preserve that captured autumn's essence in jars that would last until the next harvest. The process required community cooperation and endless patience. Apples were cooked down slowly in massive copper kettles over outdoor fires, stirred constantly for up to 12 hours to prevent burning. The long cooking concentrated flavors, while spices like cinnamon and cloves added warmth that spoke of autumn comfort. Apple butter making became a social event that strengthened community bonds while accomplishing necessary work. Neighbors gathered to help with the stirring and to socialize during the long cooking process. These gatherings created memories that lasted long after the apple butter was eaten. What made apple butter truly special was how it transformed simple fruit into something that could make the plainest bread taste like dessert. During winter months when fresh fruit was impossible to find, apple butter provided familiar flavors that connected families to autumn's abundance. Recipe 19. Scrapple. When Pennsylvania Dutch families butchered hogs in late fall, they faced a challenge: what to do with the scraps and organ meats that couldn't be turned into hams and bacon. Scrapple was their brilliant solution, transforming waste into a breakfast staple that could sustain working men through the coldest winter mornings. The process required skill and patience. Scraps and organs were boiled to create rich broth. Then cornmeal and buckwheat flour were cooked in this liquid until thick. Seasoned with sage and thyme, the mixture was poured into loaf pans to set, then sliced and fried crisp for breakfast. What made Scrapple culturally important was how it represented the complete utilization philosophy that guided traditional farming. Every part of the animal had value and purpose, and wasting anything was considered both economically foolish and morally wrong. The tradition continues today in areas with strong Pennsylvania Dutch heritage, where Scrapple remains a beloved breakfast food that connects modern families to their agricultural ancestors. It proves that the best solutions often come from the greatest challenges. Recipe 20. Tomato gravy. In 1920s, Georgia, when summer tomato harvests produced more fruit than any family could eat fresh or canned for winter, farm wives created tomato gravy, a versatile sauce that could transform simple starches into satisfying meals while using up abundant produce. The preparation was beautifully simple. Fresh tomatoes were cooked with flour, bacon grease, and seasonings until thickened into a sauce that could complement biscuits, cornbread, rice, or potatoes. A touch of sugar balanced the acidity, while the bacon fat added richness that made simple meals feel substantial. What made tomato gravy culturally significant was how it crossed all social boundaries in the South. It appeared on both black and white tables in both humble and prosperous homes. The sauce represented the democratic nature of Southern cooking. The best dishes served everyone, regardless of economic status. During the lean years of the 1930s, when protein was expensive and vegetables were often the main course, tomato gravy provided a way to make simple starches feel like complete meals. It proved that abundance could be created from the simplest ingredients when you understood how to combine them properly. These 20 forgotten farmhouse recipes prove that our ancestors were culinary geniuses who understood something we've forgotten, that the best meals often come from the humblest ingredients, and that waste is the enemy of prosperity. From corncob jelly to tomato gravy, each recipe represents American ingenuity at its finest, showing how resourceful families could create abundance from scarcity. In our modern world of rising grocery prices and uncertain supply chains, these time-tested techniques offer both practical solutions and a connection to the wisdom that built this nation. Make sure to subscribe for more forgotten wisdom from America's agricultural past, and check out the next video on your screen where I reveal the preservation techniques that could save you hundreds on your grocery bill.